We're going to talk about the physics and we're going to, basically the calculus of tennis. Okay, so let's get serious about tennis here. Let's talk about the physics, the calculus behind tennis and how it actually works. How do we control the ball and the direction that it travels? What things will affect the spinning of the ball? And here we go. So first of all, I'm going to start by just addressing that this is my depiction of a tennis racket, okay? You're looking at the butt end of the tennis racket. It's obviously a Wilson tennis racket, and this is the angle of the racket looking away from the butt. So that's important because we're going to use that angle right here to show you, this angle right here, to show you, what we're going to do to the ball. All right. So I'm going to draw your attention to this equation right here. This equation is called the Bernoulli's effect equation, and it controls everything from airplanes to a tennis ball's flight. This P1 refers to the pressure on top of the ball, P2 refers to the pressure on the bottom of the ball. And so you can see that the two equations are equal, but different things happen. And that different thing that happens is due to the spinning of the ball down here. You can see that the ball is spinning. It's got a backward spin on it, and the direction of travel is to the right. Well, in this case, that spin in this direction increases the local velocity of the ball, and it decreases it on the bottom. Those two effects cause a low pressure to happen on the top of the ball, which causes the ball to rise, and on the bottom it causes a high pressure, which pushes the ball upward. Those two things means that if you hit a slice shot, the ball is going to rise. So here's my bottom line, okay, for everybody. Top spin, which everybody knows makes the golf ball go down. Backspin makes the ball go up. I just thought I'd throw these things out, these equations out, because we're going to talk about those later in relationship to where we want the ball to travel. So let's go on to the next slide here. This is where we're going to begin. Okay, so here you can see we've got our racket, we've got a tennis ball, and that ball is going to follow a flight path, okay? Now, one of the things that I like to emphasize with my tennis players is that we're not brushing the ball, we're striking the ball. And we're striking the ball with a racket that's angled. So as you look over here, you can see that that racket is at an angle. If the racket comes in and strikes the ball right here, that ball is going to fly along this path. So we're having the ball go horizontal, because with all that spin on it, just like Rafa Nadal, it's going to go over the net, it's going to bend down and bounce up, and it's going to be our desired trajectory. Note, this is kind of a flat trajectory. If I was hitting from further back in the court, then I would have this situation where I'd have to start angling the ball up. So you can see that this arrow right here, it's angling the trajectory that we swing at. So we're changing our swing now, and we may have to adjust the racket angle backwards a little bit. And when I say adjusting the racket angle back a little bit, I mean this guy right here. We might have to tilt it back a little bit as we compensate to hit the ball up higher each time. But in this case, let's not do that. Let's select it. In this case, we're using that spin and the trajectory upward to make it so it clears the net and goes down. Now, had I hit the ball with my horizontal direction, and I'd hit the ball like that, the bend of the ball would have bent it into the net, and we would have been in air. Okay? Sounds pretty basic, pretty fundamental. So what the bottom line is, the further back you are, the bigger the angle you have to hit up at. So if I'm looking at it right here, you have to hit with a higher angle. So let me do this one so it matches. You have to hit with a higher angle in order to get it up over the net. The closer you are to the net, the more flat the ball is going to be when you hit it. Of course, if you're down closer to the net, then other things have to play into effect. Let's talk about it as we move in here. All right. So this is a principle that works with both light and tennis balls. Light reflects, tennis balls reflect, okay? So if my ball right here is following this path and it comes down here, it bounces off here, and it hits the tennis racket, it wants to do a reflective angle up here, and it's called the angle of reflection. So have you ever wondered why often when you have a beginning tennis player, they hit the ball, they try and hit the ball with a horizontal hit, and what ends up happening is the ball goes high and goes over the back fence. especially when you're playing at high altitude. That's a big problem with us. Okay, so the steeper the angle that this is coming up at, so if this is rising really quickly, like on a ball that's going to bounce and then go back to the back net, back fence, these become even harder. So what do you do in a case like that? Well, here's what you do. You delete this, or you move it. I move this out of the way, and I instead create one that looks like this. And now, if I do that, then my next line, which I'll make it orange, instead of reflecting up like this, it's going to reflect out like this. And we'll get the desired effect. So basically, if you've got someone who's hitting with lots of topspin and the ball bounces and jumps up at you, you need to turn your racket in a little bit more like that. Make sense? Let's go on. Let's see. Here we go. So here's the next factor that happens in the game of tennis. Opponents hit with different amounts of spin on this thing, and this is why it's so critical when you're warming up with an opponent, you get the feel of how much spin they hit with on their ball, so that you can start to adjust your tennis swing accordingly. Let's suppose that this ball is coming in and it has top spin on it. So you can see that I've got a little angle showing the top spin on the ball here as it hits the racket. Well, that angle right here, that angle it is turning in with, let me use my left hand, so it's turning in like that, right? It's going to oppose what we're trying to do. We're trying to spin it the other direction. So because it's opposing spinning the other direction, we're going to get less spin on the ball. So what ends up happening sometimes is we get the ball to go long. And that's not a good thing. Unless, of course, you're hitting a kick serve to this guy and you hit it with a lot of spin on it. That means that when he actually makes contact with the ball, you'll notice that a lot of those second serve returns go long, especially if you hit to the backhand side. So think about that. Lots of topspin, they get less topspin when they hit it back. Okay, the opposite is true when we go to the other side of the ball. Okay, so in this case, now we're looking at a ball that was hit with slice and it has backspin on it. So here I'll grab my ball and it comes in, it comes flying in, it bounces and it has backspin on it. Now that backspin now this time is going to help us when we hit topspin going the other direction. So we're hitting our topspin right there, you know, we hit in like that on the topspin. That slice or backspin adds to the spin that we're trying to add. Well, the problem with that is it increases the spin that we have, and what happens often is we hit the ball into the net. So if you've ever noticed that a lot of times if someone slices the ball back to you and you slice it back, or you hit it with topspin and it goes into the net and you're like, what the heck, you know, it was a good swing. Well, that's what's happening is you're adding topspin to topspin and you get more topspin, which makes the ball come down faster. So if you see a guy hitting with slice to you, make sure you adjust. Try and hit the ball a little higher up so it clears the net with a bigger adjustment, or just slice the ball back to him. And that's kind of what happens a lot in tennis. Is you hit opposing shots. So if he slices, you slice. If he hits topspin, you hit topspin. That's kind of the safest way to always stay in the game. So what adjustments would you make if someone was hitting topspin like that? Yeah, aim higher, or yeah, actually just aiming higher would be the best bet for what I would suggest. You develop one swing and it's supposed to work for every condition. Well, it doesn't. And it's just like, you know, when you go out there on the golf course, you've got 10, 15 different clubs in there, and each one has a specific purpose in it. But with a tennis racket, you just have to adjust your swing, the trajectory, and the angle of your racket when you meet the ball. So I hope that explains a lot what's just going on there. I mean, it's kind of like a child learning to speak the English language. They really don't have to know what adverbs and adjectives and nouns and predicates are in order to speak the language. And the only reason I bring this up and I go into this detail with you is because sometimes it's like, what the heck, and why doesn't it work when I have this situation? And now you know, and now you can make that adjustment. So good luck. Thanks.